Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Day 3, Mobile World Congress 2025. We are very excited to have you guys here to talk all about generative AI, TELUS Digital, and Fuel iX. I'm really excited to be here. My name's Tim MacGregor. I run our business development group. I am joined by some incredible colleagues and people that are on the cutting edge of implementing generative AI and AI in their organization. Today, we're going to start with my esteemed colleague, Bret Kinsella. We'll start off this journey, and he will introduce you to some of our esteemed speakers. Thank you so much for coming, and I will hand it off to Bret. Bret.
Thank you, Tim. Normally, when I start these things early in the morning, I ask everybody to stand up and shake out a little bit because they need to get into the day. But since most of you have walked 2.5 miles already today, I'll go past that. I'm really happy you were here today. I've been in the AI world since 2012. We think of it as post-Siri, pre-Alexa era, where you had to build things from scratch. You had to source novel technologies. And it has been quite a journey. And in particular, the journey accelerated the last 3 years. 2020, July, GPT-3 came out, and my mind was kind of blown, even though I'd been in the industry for a long time, because I just didn't think we were going to get there that fast. And then obviously that accelerated, and we've seen that over the last several years, up to the point now where we actually have AI that does stuff for us that we don't have to do ourselves. And I think that's one of the most amazing things that we've seen. However, there have been some challenges along the way, and we're going to talk about some of those today, because we see a lot of people pilot, but not that many get into production. And when you think about AI, and particularly generative AI, bring it to production, there are some particular challenges, and our first two guests are going to talk a little bit about their journey in bringing a whole lot of things to production. So first up, I want to introduce you to a guest who really made the most significant transition I can think of very early in his career. He went from a French literature major to a software programmer during the early days of the web. So we should all give him credit for that big transition. Later became a software developer over several years, founded a couple of startups, and then wound up as head of cloud platforms at TELUS. During that period of time, he worked in this transition where TELUS was transforming their data and bringing on AI, both ML-based AI and generative AI over the last couple of years. And this past fall, he joined me as the VP of Engineering at TELUS Digital for Fuel iX. Steve Tannock, please join us. All right, my next guest, has degrees in computer science, computer software engineering. Started out also as a developer, as most good humans do in this world, and made his way from IBM to a fairly important stint early in his career in telecom at Virgin Mobile. And then from there, went into VP of Technology at Ecobee. If people are familiar with that, I bet a lot of people in this room are. One of the leading technologies around smart home that's been used over many years. And then he became head of digital at Loblaws, one of the leading retailers in Canada. More recently, moved over 5 years ago, I think. Is that right? 4 years ago, to another really significant role. He's very active in the community. He was named the CIO of the Year in Canada. Everybody, give me a hand for the CIO of TELUS, Hesham Fahmy. Okay, thanks everybody for coming out this morning. The first thing, I think we have a clicker over here. Let me see if I can do that. I was probably supposed to tell you something already. I don't know if this is, there we go. These things right here, MetaQuest, you have to be here to win. We're going to be giving these away. If you got your badge scanned on the way in, you're eligible for this. We're going to give away a couple of these at the end. So call it maybe 5 or 10 minutes before we get out of here. If you haven't had your badges scanned, find Phil in the back and he'll do that for you. Okay. I just want to set this up really quickly because the two gentlemen to my left have done a lot of work over the last several years. You think about generative AI, people are asking about, does it provide value? Yes, it provides value. And you can do this at scale. $50 million in savings, 500,000 hours saved, 7,000 community co-pilots. Tim MacGregor, you just saw, is going to show you about what those mean. User customizable solutions that help them with their everyday tasks. And 25 generative AI apps in production. These are custom applications or third-party software that added generative AI that are running through the same platform. 5 of those or 5 more that are Fuel iX, and there's more than 30 applications with generative AI in test and dev. This is at TELUS, one place. Hesham, how did you do it?
That's a long journey. I think maybe I'll rewind and just how it all started, right?
Perfect.
Because you teed it up where, in July 2022, GPT-3 came, and you were right, it was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And so I think we were all mind-blown by it too, and excited about all the opportunities, but then at the same time, you started hearing all the fears that came out of it. Hallucinations, data, what's the data that's been trained on? Can you trust the model? Can you even trust your own data going out there? And at that point, we had 3 choices we could make. We could either just block it entirely and say no employee can use it, and many companies took that approach and blocked it at the firewall. I think even some countries even blocked it entirely, right? Or we could turn a blind eye and say we'll just ignore it and let people kind of go shadow and use it. Or we could do the third, which is the one we took, which is let's actually lean into this. Let's kind of go roll up our sleeves, play around with it, understand what it can, what it can't do, what its limitations are, what its opportunities are. And from there, we'll understand, okay, where we go for it. And so that's how it all started, the genesis. And so we assembled a small team and said, go play with this thing and figure out how we can wrangle it in a safe way. And actually, Steve was part of that initial genesis team. And it started from there, and we figured a way to say, okay, here's how we can use it safely. Right. Here's how we can make it accessible. We wanted to democratize it to all our team members. And here's what it can do, and here's all the risks that it has, but there are ways to manage it through guardrails. And then we had a bit of a light bulb moment, which is, wait a second, this can be transformational for our business. This isn't a toy anymore, right. And there were so many ways we could apply this. And so then that's when we did the big pivot, and it was early 2023, where we said this needs to be a strategic imperative. And it went all the way up to our CEO. And so what we ended up doing is, at the CEO level, we created what was called the Generative AI board. And that was just to steer strategically where was TELUS going to go in this space. What are some of the big use cases we want to do? How do we actually want to make it available to all our team members? So our philosophy about being responsible, but make it every team member have access to it, that it's almost like email for everyone. And then how do we actually invest in the platform, which became Fuel iX? Right. And that's where the journey really started. And then that started evolving, where the platform really evolved. It became capable. It was like a force multiplier for all our teams, and everybody was playing with it. But at the same time, through the Generative AI board, we came with what became those 25 live applications. Those were all use cases that we kind of filtered out at that board level.
What was that spark that when you realized you're like, oh, this isn't just another technology?
It's hard to say. What would you say it was?
Yeah. I think it was maybe the first time that we saw like a non-technical like a non-developer suddenly go build an app. Right, that very first time that we released a co-pilot, that no one in my team building the first sort of incubation of this went and built something that we had never thought of, never imagined, and we're like, oh, like they've just solved a really meaningful problem all on their own that we had not thought of at all, and we're like, okay, we got something really interesting here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you mentioned that you created an AI board, and then you started talking about the use cases. What were some of the early use cases that stand out to you? You think about early in the journey that you said, okay, this is where we're going to start, and this is why.
So a lot of the early ones were really around knowledge retrieval. If you think of a big organization like TELUS, there's so much tribal knowledge and so much that's undocumented. But for employees to be productive, it's like it's who do you know and who do you talk to. And so that was a lot of the early use cases. It almost said, okay, you kind of leveled up every employee to have the same amount of knowledge because they had this assistant they could talk to. And so a lot of our early use cases were just really very powerful knowledge retrieval. And then from there, we started evolving, okay, beyond retrieval, how can you be a bit more agentic? And so one of the first use cases was just our internal IT support.
Yes.
And then, if you think of, you add up all the hours that employees would have when they get locked out of certain accounts or don't know how to reset their password or don't know how to access a certain system and have to be on a call, that kind of just went away. And you had those assistants internally providing that support. And so those were the really early use cases.
Yeah.
I think what evolved from there and what was really amazing is, back to what Steve was saying, when you democratize that for all the teams and let them crowdsource,
Yes.
we got some really interesting things. So we had, for instance, all our field technicians. So TELUS, we're a telco, we've got cell towers and infrastructure, and you got field techs that have to go and they service, equipment that could be 6 months old and very modern to like D-slams that are 40 years old. And how do you have an employee that would know how to service all of that? And so what they themselves did is they just put all of that knowledge base and all the methods and procedures, all the past incidents, all into a generative AI model. And now it's through a chat interface on their phone. They can go to any site and say, wait, I'm just looking at this machine. I don't even know what this equipment is. Take a picture of it, look at it, and it would come spit out, this is what it is, this is the model. And then it will give them a step-by-step diagnosis. And just think of how empowering that has been for the team.
Yeah, field service, such a complicated scenario that you have to train people and you can only train them so much. And when you have all of this legacy equipment out there, kind of tremendous. But there was this other thing, and I remember talking to you a year ago, shortly after I joined the team, about this kind of pleasant surprise that with the field service, you also were reviewing the notes and you recognized that there were a number of visits that the technicians were making that they should have been charging for but weren't, and put that into the process, and so immediately got millions of dollars in fresh revenue over the last 2 months of 23, and it's just like serendipity.
Yes, it was totally. So we have field technicians that will go service the cell towers and equipment, and then we have ones that go in customers' homes, and that's to service your Wi-Fi router, your modem, your fiber modem. And what ended up happening, a lot of the home technicians that would go, they would service what was actually a customer problem, where it's actually the customer had something misconfigured, or the dog chewed a wire and it unplugged it, the Ethernet. But we were essentially, that's stuff that we should charge and legitimately charge the customer for. But technicians, never felt empowered. Like they felt awkward, that they have to sort of take the initiative, I'm going to charge it, versus now when they put in all the notes of the job and they say, okay, here's what I did, and it was an Ethernet cable that was chewed and I swapped it. It would go and figure out from that the model and say, you should be charging for this, and here's what you should say to the customer. And just that little step just gave that tech confidence to go and ask. And 9 times out of 10, the customer is very happy to pay for it because they can understand the context. And I think it was just unlocked potential.
Yeah, that second part I think is really important, which is the clarity of why this is billable also helped the customer.
Yes.
So it wasn't just a benefit for the technicians and for TELUS, but generally the customer experience improves better. And I think that the two sides of that, just the clarity that we could get from the incredibly complicated set of documents to have that this is what we're doing and this is why, that everyone can read and understand, it has made everything so much better.
So there are those vertical applications, but there's a lot of horizontal applications with AI, and I think everybody in this room probably recognizes it. And that's one of the things that I think is most interesting to me, is that when it comes to generative AI, like everybody's got a marketing department, an HR department, they have operations, right down the line. You can't actually, as a CIO's organization, like do all of these things for them. And so I remember at one point, Steve was telling me about the fact that I think you started out and when you did the AI board, you asked the business leaders, like, what do you guys want to do? What have you thought about? And some of them were proactively coming to you anyway. And you started out with a list of like 20 or 30 items. And then like 2 months later, you had 150.
Yeah.
And then there was this spark that said, oh, we can't do this for them, everybody. We can provide them a capability, but we've got to enable them to be able to do it themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So you said the whole journey, so I'll start kind of the tail end of that. We realized we need to structure ourselves in two parts. One is build a very, very robust platform that anybody could self-serve and anybody can build a very high-value co-pilot on and make it easy to use, make it easy accessible to everybody, democratize that. I always use the phrase, make it be like the new email in the company. Yeah. No employee doesn't know how to use email or a spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet. How do we turn that to be the same kind of familiarity? And so that's the tool which ultimately became Fuel iX. And then we said, if you do that, then you can empower teams to just go hack their ways. And in fact, you'll crowdsource and get some really interesting, innovative ideas because they're figuring out how to make it work in their workflow. And so have that platform, have a dedicated investment in a team that's supporting it, and couple that team with some enablement functions where there's people that can go and help and sit there with teams for a couple days, help them explain, walk them through, and help them just kind of get bootstrapped. So that was one part of the strategy. And that's what I call the bottoms up, the crowdsource.
Yes.
Then there was a bit of the top down, which says, okay, well, what are some of the big bets we want to do?
Yeah.
And then that's where they had the 150 ideas. It's still 150 because it keeps growing, because we keep culling from the top and more come on the bottom. But what we did is we created this transparent process. What we said is, here's a contract. We have some dedicated AI enablement squads, that we call them, that can actually do a 3 to 4 week sprint and validate an idea and get it to viability.
Yes.
But the contract is, if you're going to actually have them do this, then you as a business have to come with a very well vetted idea. And then the big part of the contract is you're going to commit that if it's a success, if it proves that this is viable, that you are going to take this back and it's going to be part of your business objectives.
Right.
So it's not a science project anymore.
It's a commit.
It's a commit.
Yes.
And so what we did, and we said, hey, and we will help you build a business case and get it so that it's commit ready. But once you are and you get the help of that team, then we will do and get you ready to from 0 to 1. But you are committed now to get it from 1 to 100 in a year. And that created a very good accountability. And so what ended up happening, we had all these teams submitting, and then we had a group that's helping to flesh the cases, and it would stack rank. And what we'd always do based on, we would always have these teams, enablement teams, they would always pull the top 3. Every 3-4 weeks, what's the next top 3? Let's go do and activate. And so it came a bit of a competition where the business unit submitting these cases, they keep trying to compete, and they're seeing where they are in the 150 stack, and I need to make my case better and stronger to get up so that I can get picked.
So I'm guessing a lot of them made the commit after they came to you.
Yep.
Someone probably already had a commit and didn't know how they were going to get there. Did that happen as well? And they're like, oh, this might be my path to cut 15% in cost or something like that.
Yeah. So you had, but those were even the better ones, because then they really had skin in the game. Like they were coming in and that this is my magic ticket that I wanted to hit my numbers.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about the use cases and the organization. Steve, I wanted to ask you about the platform level. So you think about infrastructure. We've seen hundreds, thousands of enterprises go out and they'll prove that a use case can work kind of overnight, but then they have to turn it into a real application. So what were you thinking about at the platform level at that point, thinking about scalability, how it for a regulated telecom, how you bring this to fruition so that it becomes a capability and not just a technology?
Sure. So one, it's building in from the very beginning the trust, the safety, the responsible AI was a core part. So the technology is part, the actual infrastructure is part, but it's actually that framework around. And in the same policy, we want to make this the easiest possible default. Right? We want to make it the easiest choice to do it the right way. And so a lot of the technology work has actually been around making sure that it's sort of push button go. Right? So you can step up an app and you can just have it be running in a day. Right? And all of that, make sure that we have all of the privacy guardrails in place, all the security guardrails, that we're adhering to all of the regulatory framework around AI and responsible AI beyond that. Right? We have beyond, we're a telco, it's highly regulated, but as a core corporate value, have really strong values about being responsible. And that had to reflect in everything we do from the technology up. And I think taking that view of the technology has to serve the purpose really helped us build out that platform. And so making sure that, again, that we're running entirely sovereign in Canada, so we have data residency was really important for a Canadian company, and that now we can move on to be able to have data residency everywhere else we're going. Right? And so be able to bring this now, for example, come to Europe and have data residency here with the same stack. We'd be able to repeat this process and make sure that we're meeting local data sovereignty regulatory requirements here as well. And I think that's a really important part because it just makes it easy to do it the right way. Right? If you've worked with the developers, you know that they like to be inventive and creative. I'm certainly guilty of that. But what we found is being harnessed that in some very easy to use tooling and platforms. It takes 10 minutes to sign up, get an API key, that the use of it is fully safe and we can trust it. Right. We don't need Hesham to sign off because we already know that it's safe.
Yeah, so that's great. So Hesham, you decided it was going to be potentially transformative, took that step. What were some of the principles you laid out early for the teams as you started pursuing these objectives?
So the first principle is back to democratize it and make it the easy path for everybody.
Yes.
And so, it's everything that Steve said, but the other part is but lower the barrier to entry too. Make it so easy to use that it's not a developer that has to use it, but any person, someone in finance, someone in legal can use it and feel comfortable with. So that was the first principle, is make it be the new email for the company. So that was principle number one. And then principle number two was build in all the right responsible AI, security, privacy in it by default, so that no one had to worry about it.
Right.
And do it in a way, we even told, we had a lot of employees still coming to us saying, is it safe for me to upload that document? Is it safe for you to do this? And we're just do whatever you want. It's totally safe because we put in all the right guardrails.
Right.
And we'll know, and first of all, we know that nothing is going to get exfiltrated out. But even if you put in something in and it has PII, we have all the filters that would take that out. And so you just took the whole fear and barriers out of the way.
Yeah.
But made it very, very secure and very, very safe to use. And so those were the kind of the key principles that we had there.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about democratization, and the thing that I think is interesting is telecom's obviously viewed as an old industry, right? Yeah. And sometimes slow moving. But with the generative AI tools, we have this ability to introduce agility into the organization, and even places like the contact center, which Mitch is going to talk about a little bit, but places where they haven't been able to move fast and do quick changes, quick customizations in the past.
Yeah. I'm even mind-blown, where you actually see agility in teams like legal teams.
Yes.
The legal teams were coming to us and you did what? You have that, and so they were putting in all their regulatory filings and documents and having it now as a co-pilot that they can go build their briefings on. And they themselves, it was self kind of created, and so you see that. You see our procurement teams doing it, our finance teams, and so it's almost like a catalyst for agility across the whole enterprise.
Yeah. And I want to just bring this back. So I think one of the things, I think it's fair to say as an engineer, my relationship with sort of trust and safety, the regulatory side, has not always been perfect. But from day one, we have worked so closely with sort of a data trust, privacy, our CISO, and that has meant that we have really cleared the path. And building that framework really, really early and building it in both in sort of the technology and the process by which you do it has been so key to unlock that exact agility. Because it means that legal feels safe, that procurement feels safe, because it has all the right sign-offs. We know we have all of the privacy and all of that already built in from the start.
Well, it's not just even feel safe. It is auditable safe.
Audibly safe.
That's the thing, right? It's it's not even just a feeling, it's real confidence that we have.
Well, we just did a study at TELUS Digital, which also found that 67% of employees in large enterprises today are using personal generative AI assistants at work with company data. So one of the things that I know was important to you is you figured everyone was just going to use it anyway. You might as well give them something that's sanctioned so you can actually make sure it's okay.
And we actually have the opposite problem now, where people are using the company one for personal stuff.
This is true.
But we know that we succeeded because we made the barrier to entry. It's easier for them to just open up and get Fuel IX internally than to go sign up and get a key and put my credit card and have a plan. And so problem solved for us.
Yeah, and I think there's another piece, every model is changing so fast, every few weeks there's something new. One of the great things we've done is by building across all models, we're able to give that same curiosity through Fuel IX to all our employees as well. So when you're curious about the brand new model, the hot new thing that's come out, 24, 48, 72 hours later, it's there for you, right? You can go play it and you know that it's safe to use. And that also helps reduce that go off and use the thing on the side.
Well, that was one of the other things that you did up front, where a lot, I think, of your peers went out and they just signed up with OpenAI, or they signed up with Microsoft, or they signed up with Google. You decided to take a more deliberate approach and say, I'm not going to be committed to any one of these because I don't know who's going to win.
And I think we still don't know who's going to win, right? I think that was 100% we had to do from the beginning, because I think we're in the first inning of a very long game here.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, the leadership keeps changing. Because it started by which model had the larger context window, and then it was not about context windows anymore. It was which model had better reasoning capabilities,
right?
Which one could do multi-turn, and then it get into okay, maybe they all are equivalent in context windows, but some models are very well for generating code versus other ones are generating text and documentation or multimodal, and so you have to have all the tools. You're going to hamper yourself if you're just locked to only one particular LLM, because the reality is every LLM performs in different ways for specific use cases. And if you're a true technology company, you're always going to use the right tool for the job.
Yeah, that's right. And I always think about like 3 different types of lock-in. So you've got like model and model family lock-in. So are you committed to like one vendor, and if they fall behind, what potentially happens to you? Does that limit what you can do? But then you also have potentially cloud lock-in, and like all the clouds have some limitations in terms of how flexible they are. And it's not just like the models, but it's also the other solutions you need, like guardrails or different RAG implementations and things like that. And then more recently, what we've seen is enterprise software lock-in, where a lot of the big companies are basically saying, oh, just use our thing. And to me, it's just like you don't want to lock in at any level. You want to use all of it.
Yeah.
You want to use the best of the models, the best of the cloud resources, the best of the enterprise applications, but have this framework, like I think what you both did early with like what became Fuel iX Core, to put it all together and then have applications on top of it, which are either like third party or they could be custom built. So that's been really amazing. Anything that you would tell me that has most surprised you since you started this journey? We'll start with you, Steve. 2 years ago, you were starting this journey. What most surprised you in terms of change? Then we'll come to Hesham.
So I think it's actually the creativity and power of what people have built. Like my favorite thing building a platform is when somebody does something that completely surprises me. And the fact that every 2-3 weeks, somebody will tell me about some new Copilot they built that I don't like. I understand this technology really well. I'm amazed what they have been able to create. And I think that's my favorite constant surprise. It's that by giving that access, we've unlocked so much creativity that bottoms up across the company of how people are solving problems for themselves. And it's actually just a sheer joy to see. Like, it's so rewarding to play a small part. But just to see, like we talked about the agility, just what that's unlocked across TELUS and transform people like, oh, I can actually make a change and do a thing and make something better quickly. It's just so cool to see.
He stole my thunder. I wanted to use that answer, right? But I'll say just on that one too, like it truly is mind blowing. And I said like just last week, someone in HR was showing me something that they built in a Copilot, and I was blown away. And I was almost embarrassing. Like, I'm supposed to be the geek and the smart person here. Why am I being shown up by someone in HR? But to your point, it just unlocked so much creativity, which is really nice to see. But I think to answer your question, for me, it's just the pace of evolution that's happened. Like even in the last year, what's happened, again, back to context windows, to now model reasoning and what it can do, and now you get into agentic and you can start actually performing actions. It's just mind-boggling how fast this is evolving, and I think that's what surprised me the most. I mean, we thought we were at the cusp of like a quantum leap, and then we were going to stay in that state for a long time.
Yeah.
I think it's like every month, it's something new that's getting unlocked. That's pretty surprising.
I think that's true. And what you said is it essentially leveled the playing field. The people on the front lines of the business don't need to wait for the druids in IT to like deign them with some magical capability. They can create it themselves. That is actually a tremendous change.
Just on that, I was talking to an economist from MIT last week, and he said an interesting quote to me. He said most technologies actually broaden the skill gap between people. If you think of like, you have to be a computer scientist, or have to know, and so it actually just created a bigger skills gap. This is the first technology that's actually compressed it. It's basically said that everybody can have this and can be highly productive.
Because it raises the floor.
Very cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a very interesting way to look at it, that that's, the impact it will have on society and productivity. You've compressed the skills gap instead of extending it.
That is an optimistic way to end this discussion. Could you guys give me a warm recognition here for our guests? Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I appreciate that. Hesham Fahmy, Steve Tannock, feel free to talk to them. They'll be around for a little while. Really excited about our next session right now. Our speaker, you saw him a little bit earlier. He actually comes out of the soccer pitch, which he did early in his career.
Football.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that's right. I forgot. I got the pitch part right, I guess. Was at Clearleap. Some people probably use that for some of their video streaming back in the day. Was at IBM Watson after that company got acquired, and he was one of the leaders over there from a product standpoint. Was at Telestream and joined us last year as head of business development at Fuel iX. Tim MacGregor, take it away.
Thank you for having me. All right. I am here to take the next step and give you the visuals of what my colleagues just talked about. I'm going to have to cut through some of these. All right, that's me. All right, I'm a numbers guy. I love visuals. So we're going to take everything that they just talked about and I'm going to put it into numbers. And I'm going to tell you effectively what we've been able to do with Fuel iX. I'm going to set the market up. You guys already know this. Everybody here in this room has used ChatGPT or something, but that 68% that you see up there is kind of incredible, right? 68% of people are using ChatGPT in some way, shape, or form, and they're using it in their general business day-to-day. Hesham just talked about it. Steve just talked about it. They were like, how do we find a way to make sure that our employees are not using a B2C or a ChatGPT application in their day-to-day business? It was something that they really wanted to do, and there was 3 reasons why they wanted to do it, right? There's a technology risk. There's some uncertainty. There's some risk involved in putting your personal data into a business application or a non-business application. And there's cost uncertainty, right? Like Hesham has to deal with it day to day. So many CTOs, those in the room, you have to deal with all the cost uncertainty that you are looking at by purchasing multiple different generative AI applications across the board. These are adoption barriers that people have in the enterprise. And so what we decided to do was put together Fuel iX. And Fuel iX, born out of TELUS, is our generative AI platform that we have brought to market and that we are offering to not only the telco community, but many others. One of the other things that we talk about, and Bret brought this up earlier, and I brought it up, 68% of people use ChatGPT in their day-to-day business. 57% of those people put private business data into ChatGPT or some other B2C generative AI application. So think about that. 68% of people are using it, and then of that, 57% are putting in private data. That is an incredible risk. It's something that is really, really difficult to contain or control. So how do you control that as a leader in the enterprise, right? It's incredibly difficult. So what did we do? TELUS and TELUS Digital created Fuel iX. Now what is Fuel iX, right? It says Fuel iX Core up there. It's an enterprise orchestration platform. It's incredibly powerful to have the opportunity to select the large language model you want to use, to upload your data via RAG, to have guardrails that are flexible and can be tailored to your business. This is the foundation that allows your employees to get out of the B2C generative AI ChatGPTs of the world and bring them home into your controllable, flexible platform. It is Fuel iX Core. It's Fuel iX as a generative AI platform. I got these big boxes up here. You see all the ones over on the right. You all know of them, right? Those are those foundational models that everybody wants to access. We provide a way for you to access them in a safe, flexible manner. And that is what we try to bring to bear, right? It's everything Hesham started. He started this by doing it in a customized way, and we've taken it and brought it into a productized platform that we now offer to the market. Now, once you have that core layer, that orchestration layer, and as Bret said, I come from the video world. I grew up with telcos. I grew up with MVPDs. I'm a video guy. Orchestration of video and orchestration of generative AI in my world are very, very similar. So how do I get it from A to B and I make sure it's secure and I make sure it gets to the end user in a way that I know is secure and trustworthy? So these are what we end up creating. On top of that core platform, we create applications. Now you can create your own applications on top of Fuel iX Core, or you can take ours. And some of the stuff that we've created a Copilot platform. Fuel iX Copilots is, see that QR code? I see a lot of people taking pictures. You can scan the QR code. You can actually go straight there. Fuel iX Copilots is an incredibly easy way for your employees or for your teams to create customizable copilots that are attached to their knowledge base that you can use for employee productivity. But not only do we have an employee productivity tool, it's simple, it's easy. We also have a couple others. And I have a colleague of mine who's going to talk about the contact center in a second. But we have Fortify. Fortify is one of those applications we've built on top of Core. It is a red teaming tool. We've recognized the need for an additional layer of security that you and your teams will need as you launch these generative AI applications. How are you going to test them? It may be impossible for you to employ an entire cybersecurity team to test all of your generative AI applications. Like, we recognize these are going to proliferate and they're going to be really quickly deployed to market. So we've introduced Fortify. It's our cybersecurity or our red teaming tool that is really designed for product managers and people like me who aren't going to code but are going to actually want to test their applications before they put them into market. The other two on the right are custom-made, tailor-fit for a very specific market. You know, as you guys know, when you go out in the generative AI market, there are very specific needs. Contact center is one. TELUS Digital has a very large contact center user base. And so we recognize that there's two different things we want. One, how do you train those agents and get them to market faster, right? There's really, really, really important key metrics that get somebody faster to a contact center so that you can make sure that they are proficient and they can answer questions. Mitch will show you exactly what those are. The other one is, once they're in the contact center, how do you give them a really good co-pilot, the person that sits next to you, to answer questions that are really fast, efficient, and give an answer so you can get that person off the phone or off the chat as fast as possible. This application layer is what we've designed. It doesn't mean that these are the only applications you can create. On our Fuel iX core layer, you can create all kinds of customized applications. What did TELUS do with that Fuel iX core layer? Well, they did employee productivity. That was the first step, right? You heard Hesham. They now have 50,000 people. That's incredible. It's an incredible number. That's the amount of people that are touching generative AI on a day-to-day basis, and they're doing it in a secure, trustworthy way, right? They're not putting their data into a private ChatGPT, or sorry, a public ChatGPT or other. They're doing it through Fuel iX. Big number, 50,000. Bret hit on this earlier. Of that 50,000, what does it lead to? Everybody always asks, like, give me an ROI. I'm like, okay, well, this is early days, right? It's early days in the generative AI market. But those numbers are real, right? 50,000 users. I'm going to focus in on a couple of them. 500,000 hours saved. That's incredible. It means that your employees or your team can do other things with their time, more efficient things, things that are more important to them and to your business. The other one I'll point out is that Fuel iX has 5 products. I just went through those. Agent Trainer, Agent Copilot, Copilots. We have a customer simulator, all of those things. TELUS has deployed almost all of these across their organization for various different purposes. It's kind of amazing that a telecom in Canada has done such incredible things with generative AI and has gotten to the market faster than most clients that I talk to. Everybody else gets stuck in the POC death cycle where they try it and they try it and they try it. Not Hesham, not Steve. They actually brought it to production. These are real numbers that are meaningful to the business. What are those applications that they built on top of Fuel iX Core? Everyone's taking my photo. Okay. I just want to make sure I had a good pose. What are those applications? So think of it this way. You've got your core platform, right? We can bring you applications. They're really, really easy to deploy. You can start it tomorrow, but then you can also build some of these customized applications. Hesham talked a little bit about them. Steve talked a little bit about them. I'm going to talk about a couple of them. The first two that I want to talk about, the one that everybody hears about in the news, I mean, we have a SPOC. We have a single point of contact for our IT department. It has reduced the amount of tickets and the amount of back and forth in an incredible manner. 25% reduction in the overall budget, 50% of the chat containment for your IT department. All of those are real numbers. That is meaningful to the business. I wouldn't say that those IT professionals are not needed anymore, but it is meaningful that you are being able to reduce the amount of back and forth. That's the one in the middle on the left. The one on the far left is also kind of amazing. TELUS, I see some Canadians, incredibly important that we have multilingual documentation, websites, et cetera, for both Canada and Quebec. We have a translations copilot. And so what has that allowed us to do? It's allowed us to effectively reduce the amount of budget that we are putting into our translation by using generative AI. All of that generative AI is built on top of Fuel iX. Those are our productivity tools on the left. On the right-hand side, what do we have? Well, I told you, we took it to the contact center, right? We took it to the contact center. And I love acronyms, and I don't understand what all of them mean. However, average handle time, time to resolution are the two most important things that we talk about when we are doing something with a customer. Mitch is going to go very deep into this, but some of these stats are absolutely incredible. We can't talk about the top two. We can talk about a digital marketplace or a game developer, but when you look at the average handle time, a 13% reduction or a 30% reduction in the handle time of actually resolving an issue is incredible. And when I think about this, I think about it in my shoes. If I have a better experience with what I am using, this is beneficial to me as a user. And so having those types of tools that are built on top of Fuel iX Core, the Fuel iX application, are incredibly important to the customer experience. Now, there's another layer to it. How do you deflect people from even getting to that call or that average handle time or that time to resolution? Well, you put a generative AI chatbot in front of it. And so what we have done with Kudo, which is a brand in Canada that is geared towards more of the younger demographic, we've put a generative AI chatbot out in front of the customers. And what we do is we actually interact with the customer through generative AI. Some of you may know kind of intent flow and dialogue flow and intent classification. We've actually put generative AI in front of that. And what we've done is we've been able to deflect a lot of the calls. So before we even get to average handle time or time to resolution, we are actually solving their problems through natural language and using generative AI for Kudo. These are incredibly impressive numbers. I know I'm talking a lot about numbers, and it's really early in the morning on a Wednesday, but they are very, very important. These are applications that are custom built for TELUS. It doesn't mean that we couldn't create these applications for any of you in the room. The productivity side, up and running in seconds. Our platform is so incredibly flexible, you can be up and running. Now, do you want to customize it? Those are things that we can bring to bear on top of Fuel iX Core. So, you guys want to take another photo? Anybody? Okay. Last part about this is that generative AI, we talked about the adoption barriers, risk uncertainty, technology uncertainty, cost uncertainty, a lot of uncertainty. What isn't uncertain on the Fuel iX platform or with what TELUS has deployed is that we are really making an effort to be responsible and ethical with the AI that we have deployed into the market. It's incredibly important that every single thing that we do for TELUS, TELUS Digital, and all of our clients has a responsible and ethical AI. What does that mean? Well, there's two big circles up there. Responsible AI, we won it in 2023, and the ISO certification for privacy by design. Now, what does that mean? I'll focus on the ISO certification. We all know what ISO is in this room. It really is for our TELUS.com chatbot, a generative AI chatbot that all of our TELUS customers use. It is something that we are incredibly proud of. We make sure that all of our customer data, all of the data that traverses through Canada is private, it stays there, and effectively it won't hallucinate, so you know that your customers are safe interacting with any of the chatbots that Fuel iX Core has put out or that TELUS has deployed. Responsible and ethical AI is incredibly important for us as a company, and we have custom built it into the platform that we are now deploying for telcos around the world, as well as a bunch of other clients. I've given you a lot of stats. You guys all took photos of them, so you're going to use that later. But what I want to do now is I want to turn it over to Mitch Lieberman, my colleague, who focuses on one part of this deployment, and that one part is our contact center customer experience, and I will give it to him now. Thank you.
I'd like to get a little bit of applause to the brand. So the engineers and the product folks have the right brand image going. Shoes match the logo. So I want to talk a little bit about the journey. So it's a great setup that Bret started with Hesham and Steve, and that the stat that Hesham brought up about this is compressing. That's exactly what we're going to talk about. My entire focus as a product team is about making people better. Before I came to Fuel, I spent 18 months at Fidelity Investments doing research on the next generation contact center. And there's some themes that pop out. One, there's a lot of people at shows like this, other contact center shows that will say, people are going away. People are not going away. It's really important. So that's going to be a key theme that we're going to talk about. All right, I hope to be able to do a live demo, so I have to kind of get the computer going here. Make sure that works. So, we're going to talk about customer experience. Customer experience is something that you hire people to bring your customers on a journey. Right? Exceptional experience is super important. Operational efficiency, those are the numbers that Tim's talking about. You need to be able to do both. Right? So the important part here is, why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this, you heard a lot about organizations that are going to leverage generative AI. Right? They're going to offer seamless omni-channel experiences. Omni-channel is not my favorite word, because customers have their favorites. As an organization, you need to be able to support people and your customers, chat, email, phone, SMS, but customers choose just a few. But we have to have operational excellence. Right? That's hard. How do you provide customer service excellence and have operational efficiency or operational excellence at the same time? That is what we call the agility loop, and it's very hard to do. It's very hard. So what is the key reason that we're doing this? Customers are frustrated. They're frustrated with their hold times. They're frustrated. How many of you have had to verify when you call an organization with some random set of numbers or identification? How many of you had to do it twice on the same call? Right? Frustrating. We don't want to do that. So we have to help our associates, our agents, our customer service representatives to be better. Right? That's what we're about. We need to raise the floor up for them. Here's the acronym, so here's the kicker. The most important metric that organizations look at is the customer lifetime value. This is about loyalty. This is about continued business. Right? In the world of contact center, the closest thing, notice that there's one three-letter acronym that's not on here because I'm not a fan. I'll say it with NPS because some people use it, but customer satisfaction is king. Right? So customer satisfaction is known to be a key driver of customer lifetime value. So in a contact center, how do we drive towards customer satisfaction? We drive towards customer satisfaction with another one of those acronyms, which is first call resolution and handle time, because calls are too long. Right? And how do we do that? High quality agents. That's our goal. Right? So this is the agility loop. The green is work in progress. Right? And as you go left to right, you have to prepare customer service associates to be ready. Speed to proficiency is a term that your learning teams might talk about. Readiness. It has lots of things. It has lots of names. Right? We're going to amplify their capabilities within the contact center. These are agent co-pilots. I want to make a connection to the previous few speakers that shared ideas with you. We're able to do this because of the work that Steve and the platform team have put together. I get to build new applications with incredible speed. We're laser focused. We went from a large journey to some ideas, to narrowing the ideas, to building specific product suites. right? So I want to prepare people, and I want to amplify basically, I want to let people be people. I'm going to show them the right data. We're going to have auto query so that their knowledge is surfaced in real time, depending on what the customer's asking. Right? We can do real-time sentiment. The customer's unhappy or they're happy. Right? So to allow the customer service agent to kind of continue on that specific call. Reducing hold time. We're getting rid of handle time. Reducing silence time while people are researching. So we have before the interaction, during the interaction, and then evaluation. The market term is quality management or automated quality management. We're going to take a different spin, which is why the infinity diagram behind it. We're going to take quality management and we're going to operationalize it by looking at transcripts and generating training scenarios so that we can actually make people better and then allow them to take calls better and be prepared more quickly. Right? So we want to take a holistic view. Customer experience enhancement is one of our greatest advantages. We want a complete generative AI solution. We are built on top of generative AI. I get to choose. When we build copilots, as Tim talked about, and agent copilots, you can choose your model. We might have one model for summarization. We might have a different model for sentiment analysis or auto query. So we can choose. We can build these copilots. We can also allow them to be API accessible as well as completed applications. This is a context diagram. This is basically where does this fit in the layers of a contact center. It's a little bit of a myopic view for me. I want to see how I fit, but it's a broad view for customers. Where does this actually fit? So on the left side, you have agent trainer, right? And that's getting ready, and that can be disconnected. So we can firewall that. It doesn't actually have to have data. So we can ramp these things up in days. We can bring a new customer live as soon as they sign up and say, we want to try it. Agent copilots are very similar. We can make them live in a disconnected fashion while we figure out how to integrate them into the desktop. And then agent quality, we can then take automated quality management and feed it back in. So we're giving customer service representatives the best experience possible. And we can connect with all the systems down below so they can feed knowledge. We've heard that knowledge is super important. So we want to continue down that journey. So this is the contact center agility loop. Here's some of the ROI. I'm going to go through these a little bit more quickly because you have these. So I'm not going to pose. I'll actually get out of your way so you can take pictures because I want to accelerate to a demonstration. So this is the ROI on agent trainer, reduce time proficiency, reduce churn, employee engagement. You can reduce handle time. So here's the ROI slide on the handle time. What do you get? Right? There's an absolute dollar figure associated with reducing minutes on the phone because you're paying salaries and it's a direct translation. So I don't want to spend a lot of these. I think Tim and team spend a lot, and you have the pictures, but I think it's super important. There is dollar value ROI against putting in these capabilities. Right? And finally, the ROI in coaching. This can be saying that a call happened and Mitch's calls were not very good, so we have to assign Mitch a new scenario so that he can go train and get prepared. You can do aggregate. This team is doing well. But it doesn't always have to be negative. It's about employee experience. We want to reduce churn. Churn in the contact center is somewhere between 30 and 40%. That means between 30 and 40% across the industry of customer service representatives leave every year, and you have to retrain them. So we have to increase their experience level, make them feel better about their job, and we have to up-level them and skill them up as quickly as we can. Agent, so this is the suite designed for the agility loop to foster improvement. Agent trainer, agent copilot, and agent quality. And they all fit together. And I think that's what I have, so we're going to go back a slide. We can switch it up, please. Hi, this is Mitch. I'm a contact center operations manager. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Mitch. I'm excited to tell you about Agent Trainer. It's a revolutionary platform that uses AI to transform contact center operations. We can help your team.
You know, I'm a little bit worried. I don't know how to sell this to my management team. Can you give me a little bit of the ROI? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Can you share the ROI with me? She doesn't like being interrupted. Can you share the ROI with me? Having trouble with the sound. I apologize for that. Exit the sessions. This is the agent trainer application. So what I'm going to do is try a different simulation. And see if I can get this
I
one.
understand your concern.
Didn't turn that one off. Hi, this is Mitch. How can I help you?
Look, I'm about to lose my spot in the Quadrant X qualifier because of this stupid game crashing. It's been happening every 30 minutes or so, right in the middle of firefights. I'm losing SR, my viewers are seeing me disconnect, and my team is going nuts. This is ridiculous.
Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. Who am I speaking with?
It's Alex, Voltage X. You know, the Master Elite guy who's been streaming Solar Conquest for the past 3 years. I'm pretty sure you've seen my name around. This is the first time I've had this kind of issue, and it's happening at the worst possible time.
I'm really sorry to hear that. Does it only happen with this one game, and does it happen with any frequency?
Yeah, it's only Solar Conquest. It's been happening every 30-45 minutes, like clockwork. It's driving me crazy. I've tried everything. Reinstalling the game, verifying files, disabling overlays, even running memory diagnostics. Nothing works. My viewers are starting to think I'm just throwing matches, and my team is about to kick me off the roster. I'm about to lose my spot in the Quadrant X qualifier, and I'm not going to be happy if this isn't fixed ASAP.
Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. Is there any chance that you spilled your energy drink on your console?
Are you serious? I'm a professional. I don't spill drinks on my setup. This is a high-end PC, not some cheap console. I'm talking RTX 4080 i9 processor, 32 GB RAM. This is a serious issue, and I need a serious solution.
Right.
I'm about to miss out on a $10,000 tournament because of this.
All right. Well, I think you called previously, and I think one of the things we recommended was for you to take your power supply, if you said you had one, and we wanted you to power down your game and plug it into the power supply. Did you do that?
I have a UPS, but it's not connected to my computer. I'm not going to unplug my whole setup just to play a game. I'm not a casual gamer, I'm a professional. I need a real solution, not some half-baked suggestion. I'm losing viewers, I'm losing SR, and I'm about to lose my tournament spot.
Right.
This is a serious issue, and I need a serious solution.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that. So what I'd like to do is I'd like you to try that. I'd like you to unplug the game, unplug and plug your UPS in, plug it in, and give us a shout back if it doesn't work. Can we do that?
Look, I'm not going to unplug my whole setup just to play a game. I'm not a casual gamer, I'm a professional. I need a real solution, not some half-baked suggestion. I'm losing viewers, I'm losing SR, and I'm about to lose my tournament spot. This is a serious issue, and I need a serious solution. I'm not going to waste my time with something that's not going to work.
All right. So I think you get the idea. I did a horrible job actually trying to solve the problem, but you get the idea. So one of the reasons we do a demonstration like that, because it can resonate at a personal level, I hope you can make the extension of how it might work within your business, right? So we can do scenarios for financial services, we can do scenarios for healthcare, we can do many others, and we're doing them now. See, 2.3, horrible, right? Out of 5. But you can actually see the criteria that was set up here, and you can actually go through, see, I'm horrible, I didn't listen, I talked over them, I did all those things. So agents will get a scorecard, and then we can do AQM, and then we can bring it back. So just wanted to give you a gentle, kind of an idea of what we can do, and the transcripts for these are available, and you can compare them when the customer service agents are on the call. So thank you much for your time, really appreciate it, and I'm going to hand it off to the next. Tim, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Absolutely, Mitch.
Thanks.
I don't know about you, but I'd like to give Mitch another round of applause for trying to do a live demo at Mobile World Congress. I think I've been there before, and I will never do it again, but Mitch did an incredible job. Thank you very much, Mitch. I think what you just saw was an incredible representation of some of the applications you can build on top of Fuel iX. To round out today's session, I wanted to bring back up a couple of your guests and introduce a new guest. So the first person that I'd like to welcome to the stage is Monty Hamilton, our Chief Product and Marketing Officer at TELUS Digital.
Hey, Tim, thanks. Hey, everyone.
Monty has been an executive at Telstra, a partner at PwC. He's the former Chief Digital Officer at TELUS, and he currently runs all of our products and all of our marketing at TELUS Digital. So thank you very much, Monty. I'd like to welcome back Bret Kinsella, our GM of Fuel iX, and Hesham Fahmy, our CIO of TELUS. We're going to end today with a very in-depth view from these three individuals. You guys have heard about all of the different things that we're going to get off that. We're not doing agent trainer anymore. These are the three guys. All right. We're gonna do a very quick discussion. We have about 20 minutes.
And we're giving away MetaQuests at the end.
MetaQuests.
We are.
MetaQuests. I have some names in my pocket.
Plural.
Wonderful.
I want to see what those names
This is
are.
legitimate merchandise on offer.
Definitely not you.
So the first thing that I want to talk about, I mean, Monty, you've been here at Mobile World Congress for the week. From a product perspective, we have Reshaping Telecom up here. How, from your product position, do you think generative AI and AI is helping reshape the telecom landscape?
Well, I think so much of the advancements in our industry have been hardware-driven, whether it's consumer devices, new network technology, new physical technology. Finally, we're seeing the promise of software sitting on top of that. And we've been constrained, often by hardware, often by compute power, et cetera. And now we have this incredible software under the broad banner of AI and generative AI that can help us achieve so many of the goals, realize so many of the promises that we've been aiming for. And that's a real theme. Like just even looking around like consumer devices, I'm surprised at just how quickly manufacturers have integrated software into the actual device experience that is bringing AI to bear. Now, some of the use cases are a bit tedious. The dust is yet to settle, but there are some really pragmatic examples, whether it's camera integration into AI or, of course, just a personal assistant or co-pilot, to borrow your language, sitting on the device.
And from a product perspective, I look at you, Hesham. You have to make a decision about which products you bring into your organization or which you build. When you think about your next steps in the telecom and in your choices of what to do with generative AI, what do you think is coming next for your organization?
That's a tough question. I think when we look at generative AI, like everybody takes the efficiency angle, right? And I think that's a big mistake. I mean, that's the table stakes, the low-hanging fruit, but it's not about an efficiency play, and it's not about automating everything out of your business. I think people are really missing the real potential, which is where does it unlock new creativity? And I think this is where you get these interesting use cases. So, I mean, what you just saw right there, like how do you reimagine what a call center could be? And how you train a call center and how you bring operational efficiency. So this isn't about automating their jobs out, but this is about empowering them in a different way. That's an interesting use case. I think again, we were just doing a workshop with some of our leadership team and getting them really familiar. And how do you actually use generative AI to generate new ideas? Like go say, okay, here's the fastest way you can do some market research. So one of the scenarios we did, which is go and browse across all Reddit forums, Canada has what's called the CCTS, which is the government complaints. Like, just analyze all that, come back, and come with what are the top 5 themes that we should be focusing on as a business. And then say, okay, of that now, give me not just one idea, give me 20 ideas. And it's really hard. You think of as a person, it's hard to come up with the first idea, but now you can have a generative agent that can give you 20, 30, 40 ideas. And what does that unlock in terms of creativity and problem solving? And it was amazing to see what happened in that workshop and the ideas that came out of it. I think this is what we're missing. And so when you say what the next bets, it's going to be all around how do you do that generative part, that creativity part, unlocking new potential.
And you've unlocked that at TELUS with the kind of the democratization of generative AI across the co-pilot experience, which is kind of incredible to see.
There's something that's interesting on this, right? So we talked about compute power and access to data, and then the opportunities you've just touched on. It all comes back to now human capacity to process.
Right.
So many organizations have had, trends and themes around customer friction points, et cetera. Now we've actually got to face into the fact that we're not sampling this anymore. This is the truth serum in front of us. And I think this is the next cultural transformation in how we, as leaders, grapple with it at any level of your organization. What do I do with this information? How can I act on it? And there's a big theme there around deselection and simplification.
100%. But also to that, it's also that quick ideation. It's now, say, give me 20 ideas, 30 ideas. How can I go? How do I prototype quickly? Like you can actually now, again, through generative AI, build me a mock-up real quick and let me go try this. Like this pace of you being able to process it and act quickly is going to really accelerate.
Absolutely.
And that's an incredible difference. Bret, you started doing some of this work in conversational AI a long time ago. So what is the major difference, what Hesham and Monty are pointing out, that you've seen between 10 years ago and now? And how do people in the room take advantage of it?
Well, the system seemed great 10 years ago, but they were incredibly dumb. I mean, when you think about it, you think about when Siri came out, like how amazing that was. Everybody rushed out to get the 4S. And then you just think about, then they had all these problems. They couldn't scale it. Just like everybody's seeing that again, right? But it could only do what you pre-programmed it to do. And that's really the biggest difference here, because when we look at the generative space, what it's enabled us to do is it's enabled us to have open-ended inputs, so you can say anything you want into it. And we've had that for a while, but in the past, we always had closed outputs. We had a very circumscribed number of responses that we predetermined what you could do. And now it can go anywhere. You can have open-ended outputs as well. And I think if you think about where we came with like Siri and then the early days of Alexa with being able to execute tasks and things for that, and now we move into the generative space where you can actually, instead of just do things, you can know things, and you can pull information out in a way that you couldn't before. You can generate information, but now I think the next step is we're pulling those together. And so this old do engine and the know engine are coming together and dynamically with like calling tools and all these different things. And so there's going to be a lot of places that today you think of as like the old imperative model. Imperative, I lay out every step. It always has to go the same way. And now it's declarative. Here's my objective, and the system helps you complete that.
That's such a difference from 10 years ago to what we can do today. One of the things that I'm so impressed by is how fast that TELUS has been able to actually implement some of these new technologies. Hesham and Monty, I'd love to hear from both of you, but we touched on it earlier. How do you think you've been able to do that better than some of your other peers in the organization or some other companies that we may work with? Like, what is the difference? How did you get generative AI into production so quickly?
I would say it's probably two things. And surprising, the first one is not technology at all. I think it's culture. And you have to have a culture that's curious by nature, willing to experiment, willing to challenge the status quo. I mean, that's one of our values, is consistently challenging the status quo. Because that puts you in the right mindset to say, well, then I want to experiment, I want to play, and I want to take risks, but then how do I do them as calculated risks? And so you have that sort of that bias for action, bias for curiosity, but then you say, okay, this could be a very big risk. How can I chunk it into smaller things? So if it fails, the outcome or negative impacts are very small. So I think that's the first thing, is how do you wire a company that way and a culture? I mean, we're lucky that that's kind of naturally how we're wired as a company. But then now to bring the air cover, like I said, with this generative AI board, say it's endorsed all the way from the CEO. Like say, go play, and we can make mistakes and we can have some mishaps, but it's safe. We want you encouraging to do that. So I think that was the first one. And then the second part was what Steve and I were talking about, is create the path of least resistance and make it super safe to do it. Yeah. So that even if you did have a mistake, and mistakes will happen, but your blast radius becomes very small. And I think when we're doing those two, really kind of just unlocked a lot of the potential for us and gave us that freedom to do that.
It's a great point. The power of partnerships. So, for those in the room today, TELUS Digital is 60% owned by TELUS, and so that gives us a natural advantage working together. So whether you're a service provider in the room or a professional services partner to a service provider, building and forging that partnership is absolutely essential, because building on the culture was the trust that even if we did misstep on the journey together, that we would be only one step back for another 2 steps forward just around the corner. And that shared governance and shared goal, like Hesham mentioned earlier, that we were fortunate enough to attend the Stanford Executive Program back in April 2023, right? And after that, this Gen AI sort of explosion was happening around us. And so we decided very early to form this Gen AI advisory board, calling on the most senior executives across our respective organizations. So we have this unique and privileged relationship between TELUS and TELUS Digital, but each of you out there have the opportunity to find a partner, whether it's your client, whether you're a service provider looking for a professional services partner, so you can create that one-on-one equals 3 relationship.
And that partnership is incredibly valuable for me when I talk with our clients. But, we take all that learning from TELUS, and how do we productize it, Bret? How do we turn it into a platform that can actually be used by everybody in the room?
Well, I think there's a big difference between building a capability inside an organization and then building a capability for thousands of organizations. And while Hesham was talking, the culture and those types of things, I was thinking there were a couple other insights there that I think were really important that I recognized immediately, because I was brought in. I was actually running an AI research business for a number of years before this, and so I was working with CIOs, CTOs of large organizations, and I was seeing them kind of miss the point of what was going on. What you talked about, this idea, is you said it could be transformational. So you thought about scale and impact right from the very beginning. And then the other thing you thought about was flexibility. And I think those are both principles that when you actually take something to market, I can't just make it scalable at one company. I have to make it scalable for not just telecom, but for banks and retail. And these are very different businesses, right? And so when we think about some of the things that started, I came in and was actually very welcomed to have that perspective behind it and a lot of that thinking already in the initial code base.
And maybe just piggyback on that, it's again part of how we're wired and part of the partnership we have with TELUS Digital is that we made a decision early on saying anything we were going to build in TELUS, we would always be platform-based. We were never going to be point solutions-based. Everything we wanted to build as a platform for TELUS so that we could get leverage across our different lines of business, but then say, okay, because our partner is TELUS Digital, we want to make sure we build that it could be a platform that could now be used externally. And so I think that also was probably a big part of our success, is that we took that platform view on everything we built.
I think that's a really, really good point, and that's what drove decisions around the investment in privacy by design from the outset. So we tested internally when the barriers for these experiments leaving the lab and getting to scale, we sent it in on 2 key themes, the first being privacy and sovereignty of the data. So we designed that into the DNA of the team working on the platform and the platform we built from day one. The second was choice and the ability to combine the different models, because we knew that if you hardwired a solution into one provider, as much as you may love that provider today, that you may choose to pursue alternatives going forward. Now, an unintended consequence of that approach is that we unlock the capability to not just use a single model, but to combine multiple models. In fact, the Fuel Fortify product was almost designed by chance than careful planning, because we learned that you could automatically red team and test a language translation of one model versus another, or even course correct an answer for one question in an agent trainer with another model that might be better at it.
That kind of creativity and ingenuity that comes out of the teams, and I'm going to harp on it a little bit. Hesham's team is incredibly innovative. Some of the things that your team comes up with, how do you make a decision about which ones you want to move forward with before you decide to invest in them? Because it's such a creative team you have. It's incredible. But which one do you decide? How do you decide which ones you want to use?
So we actually don't have that problem because we invert the process. So I mean, what you're describing is we go and play and find technology and then go find a problem for it that solves. And we are very creative, but we do it a different way, which is we fall in love with the problem. And so we're out there looking at our business, what are the problems, what are the problems, what are the problems that have there? And so we're always grounded in what problems that's out there that actually drive value. And one of our North Stars in our team is we have to deliver value. You're not delivering solutions, you're delivering value. And so when we're wired that, everything that we're actually doing in prototyping or being in generative in is always tied to an actual outcome that's going to drive. And so there is no then choice of do you do it or you not do it. It's all driven by there's a pull and demand for every solution we're doing. So I'd say that's our recipe. It's just we'll be driven always by, hey, there's problems out there and we just want to find the best solution for them.
And what's interesting about that lens is the unique but considered focus on business experience and technology. Because when you over-index on, say, just the technology component, you miss the experience or you miss the commercial opportunity. And so one thing that's been really important to us as we pursue innovations in this partnership is what is the people impact? What is the experience that we deliver? Which is why you see some of the quality user interfaces that have been built, a voice-to-voice interaction. Now, granted, in this room with the audio, we had a couple of hiccups with the demo, but if you sit in a normal environment doing that, the effort that's been built into the experience is profound, and it leverages and actually pays respect to the underlying technology. And all of those have a business or commercial flow-on impact. But that business experience and technology balance across the 3 points of the triangle is absolutely exceptional.
Business experience and technology. I guess we're going to take that away from today. This has been an incredibly innovative and great discussion. We're very excited you guys attended. Thank you so much. I wanted to say thank you to both Bret, but also...
Before they leave, though.
I know.
Okay.
Hesham
Don't
and
leave.
Monty, thank you so much for sharing all your stuff.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out today. One of the things that has been my great pleasure is working with the people on the stage here. We have an amazing playground. I've done a lot of SaaS. I've done a lot of AI. I've never had a playground like TELUS and TELUS Digital, whether it be operations or the contact center or whatever it is. And I can't remember the last time I had colleagues like these. Feel free to come up and talk to us. I feel like we are our customers because we're just basically helping other companies go through this same journey, but avoid some of the pitfalls, take the steps earlier, make it flexible, have impact as early as possible. Thank you so much for coming out today. Come by the booth. We're in Hall 6 if you want to see demos. See Brandon or Phil at the back. Thanks so much for coming out today.
Thank you.